Welcome to Empowerment Radio. My name is Dr. Friedemann, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me. Empowerment Radio is about giving you the insights, tools, and solutions to address some of the most challenging aspects of our daily lives. So sit back, relax, and empower yourself. Welcome back. We are talking about avoidance and the 4 aspects in life that you want to stop avoiding to gain more confidence and fulfillment. The avoidance is just like a habit, right? So some ways when you are having a problem and you're feeling like, well, I'm solving the problem by eating junk food or having a stiff one or just, vegging out, that may give you instant relief. But it doesn't really give you a long-term reward because in the end, somehow you do feel that stuckness and that what you have been avoiding doesn't go away by not looking at it. Now, a client of mine, David, he bragged almost to me at some point saying like, I am the only one who is getting along with my brother. All my other siblings are not getting along with him, but I get along with him, no problem. So how do you do this? I asked him. He said, well, I simply listen to him and I never contradict. I just said, And so we just have a jolly good time. Sounds like, a nice little pleaser, peacemaker strategy. But the problem was that when we had a couple session where actually he showed up with his wife, I saw the same pattern there as well. He became more and more quiet. He let his wife talk. I saw sometimes he didn't totally agree with what she said, but he didn't say anything. So in another session, I asked him about, so is that something that you do? Just avoid conflict because it's more important for you to have peace and harmony than maybe getting somehow into an argument or feeling like that people are critical of you or that they don't like you anymore. And he admitted that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened with pretty much everyone that was important to him. He assumed that the best way to not get rejected or abandoned was by simply avoiding conflict, saying either nothing or saying yes to everything they say. Now, what happens in this avoidance pattern, which may sound familiar to you as well, is that unfortunately, it doesn't really improve the relationships. It doesn't improve the relationship to the people that we are not really totally honest with because we are not really showing them who we are and what we think. It doesn't improve those relationships because at some point, it creates a sense of resentment that they have the power and we are not allowed to really say or express ourselves or advocate for ourselves. It doesn't improve the relationship because there is at some point a wall of everything we didn't say that keeps those people at a distance. And we are wanting to even avoid those people. And if that's your spouse or your kids or your friends, we want to avoid them altogether because it's just too uncomfortable to be in their presence. And most importantly, the avoidance of conflict, where you're not saying something that's really important to you, something that would really make your life better or the relationship better. You're not saying it, and therefore you're ultimately not standing up for yourself. You're not giving yourself a voice, which is a form of self-abandonment. And this is why people that are avoiding conflict, and you might call them pleasers or peacemakers, but people who do that have often a very, very limited sense of self or a limited confidence because they are undermining their sense of worthiness every time they are abandoning themselves by not having that conversation. It doesn't even have to be conflict. See, this is the trick of the mind that calls it conflict, which, sounds scary because we all remember when we got in conflict with our parents or the teachers or the peers that may have, bullied us or beaten us up at the schoolyard. So that's where all of this avoidance may come from. It may be the avoidance of the rejection that we experienced by those kids that from one day to another just didn't talk to us anymore. Or the girlfriend or the boyfriend that just broke up and didn't really explain why. So there is a hurt, a wound behind that. And that is often something that needs to be addressed. But it doesn't get addressed by just playing nice and by not really speaking up for yourself. So just see that conflict, that conversation, not as something that is about fighting or winning or arguing, but more about creating actually more synergy with the person that you find worthy of your relationship or your connection or your friendship. See it more as something that you are investing into yourself because you want to actually be someone who stands up for yourself, who does have a way to, be seen in the world and is not shy, not invisible, but says, I actually deserve to have at least, that's what's important to me, recognized and maybe even addressed. And then also see that this sense of not wanting to have this conversation, this conflict, comes also from the lack of boundaries. And there are 4 boundaries that I want to just briefly talk about because they're really important. Often we see boundaries more as one thing, which is pushing back or saying no or just not letting something happen. And that's an important boundary. That's an external boundary that I feel when we do feel that avoiding conflict is no longer an option because it destroys your relationship to yourself and maybe even the relationship with others. You actually say, okay, I'm going to have to focus on this boundary of maybe saying no, or I disagree like David did, or this is not working for me. But the second boundary is also important, which is a boundary of not taking other people's energy on. Meaning, like when someone is in that moment, maybe upset with you because you say no, because you were known to be a yaysayer. Or maybe they disagree back and they say, well, we just have to agree to disagree. And there is a certain kind of frustration with that. And you are taking it on. Of course, in that moment, it feels like an assault. It feels, again, overwhelming. Those emotions feel more, trigger for your own anxiety. And then you go right back into avoidance. So having a sense of these are their emotions, these are their challenges, this is where they may feel hurt or insecure or surprised or unworthy or whatever those things are. Just see this more as something that you are leaving in their camp. And you can even visualize yourself having a nice invisible shield around you that keeps that energy outside, 6 feet, doesn't come close. You can see it, but as you know, no one is responsible for somebody else's emotions. You're not responsible for those emotions. It's their responsibility to express maybe what's going on with them, how they feel, but ultimately to know that they create those emotions, they create the reactions, and they also have to deal with it. And the third boundary is the boundary of not letting your mind always go back to the same situation over and over again, or letting your mind already before you have this conversation, think about how bad it's going to be and how there will be darts coming out of this person's eye and they're going to spit vinegar at you. And I mean, no, really have also a boundary with yourself and say, no, I will not take this mental spiral as something where I'm wasting my energy, my time with, where I'm only thinking about the other person and this way giving that person so much power. I actually just, in the moment, prepare what I want to say. I'm going to maybe imagine how I want to deliver it, and then I leave it by that. And then I will not go over and over and over again into the what ifs or in those little fictional scenarios that we often do. That's a very important boundary that most people don't realize they have to make with themselves. And the fourth boundary is the boundary of compassion. See, when there is a conflict, and I have plenty of people that had been in conflict through conversations with me, and it's 80 to 90% of the time something where they feel deeply insecure and powerless. And that insecurity and powerlessness is in direct correlation to how angry and frustrated they may express themselves. So if you see someone getting really angry because maybe you contradict, maybe you dare to say no, know that a confident, a person who is well-rounded and rooted in themselves wouldn't act like that. So by you saying no and advocating for yourself, you may have triggered in that person a pain, a wound, maybe a sense of unworthiness, which then got, into that reaction of anger. But anger is only the cover-up for their pain. So if you have compassion for their pain, don't get hung up in their anger and just know it's like a child that screams and yells a tantrum because it feels powerless, it feels unheard, it feels unloved. When you have that already in your mind as, if that should happen, I have compassion for this person. I can't even imagine that there is a little self in them that is just, saying, ouch, this hurts. And I'm going to be calm and loving and caring from my energy when I talk to them. So I'm not taking their anger on, and I'm responding through compassion in a way that diffuses the anger and makes the person maybe even feel safe and loved and seen. And that's exactly what happened with David. David was able to then talk to his wife in ways that he said, when you do this, I don't agree with that. I have a different opinion. And this is how I see the situation. And at the beginning, she had her own reaction. And he knew it came from that place of her also not feeling valuable or not feeling seen. But when he had this compassion for her and he responded calmly with compassion and understanding, she completely calmed down, and their relationship is so much better because of it. And he feels so much better about himself because he finally has given himself a voice. Brené Brown says authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. And I don't think that anyone you care about deserves anything less than to see who you truly are. See your authentic self. We're gonna take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about emotions, the avoidance of emotions, and how we can stop that as well. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.